Number 10. Over dinner. One of the worst things you can do to someone while in a relationship is cheat. After putting all your trust into a person only for them to turn around and break your heart, it's devastating to say the least. A man in 2020 thought he was on top of the world, having cake and getting to eat it too. While out for a nice, relaxing dinner with his mistress, his wife suddenly showed up to confront him. She recorded the entire confrontation on camera and later uploaded the footage to her TikTok account. After asking who the lady eating with her husband was, the two, with dumbfounded looks on their faces, simply said she was just a work friend. But women have better intuition than that, and this was obviously a blatant lie. The wife responded by asking what kind of friend she was. At this point, it seemed like the woman at the table finally realized the man was actually married. It's unclear if she knew the man was in a relationship before this moment. She looked over at her date with an incredibly disappointed look and soon got teary-eyed as the wife kept talking. Eventually, the husband stood up and walked towards his spouse. When the video went public, there were a lot of different reactions. Some say that the mistress had to have known what she was doing since she seemed so calm in the footage. Another commenter claimed that the cheating husband was so silent because he was trying to find the smoothest exit. But the only one we can think of is divorce. Number 9. Younger woman. On April 23, 2018, 47-year-old Jennifer Garrido got revenge on her husband after discovering that he was having an affair with a woman 15 years younger than him. Not only was the mistress, 33-year-old Meredith Chapman, over a decade too young for Mark Garrido, she was also his boss at the University of Delaware. Jennifer noticed that Mark was starting to become distant, and she grew suspicious of what he might be doing. She asked him if Meredith was the reason he was acting so differently. By this point, though, Jennifer already knew the answer. He initially denied the affair, but after constant questioning, he eventually confessed to it. In response, Jennifer admitted that she had gotten into his phone and read his messages with his mistress already. She also placed tracking devices as well as audio recording technology inside his clothes where he wouldn't notice it. Not long after, Mark told his wife that he was going to file for divorce. Meredith, who was also in a rocky marriage, made a plan to separate from her husband as well. Meanwhile, Jennifer was working through her issues with a divorce coach. She was heartbroken that her partner of 25 years could just throw her away for a prettier, younger girl. With one text to her ex, she said, "You ruined my life." Jennifer then went to Meredith's home in Philadelphia, where she confronted the mistress inside her kitchen while holding a gun. Not surprisingly, this conversation didn't go well. Jennifer shot Meredith dead before hopelessly taking her own life. It's obvious that the affair broke her heart to the point of no return. Number 8. Deadly affair. In 2020, a man completely lost his mind in New Hampshire after finding out that his wife was cheating on him. 30-year-old Armando Barron allegedly beat his wife, 31-year-old Brittany Barron, after discovering the affair. He even put a gun into her mouth and threatened to pull the trigger at one point during his violent outburst. Brittany had been seeing 25-year-old Jonathan Amirault for an undisclosed amount of time when her husband caught on. Armando apparently stole his wife's phone and pretended to be her while messaging Amirault, telling the young man to meet up in a park. While there, Armando immediately jumped the man and ordered Brittany to shoot him after handing her a gun and putting his hands around hers. He kept trying to get her to hurt the victim. When she wouldn't step on his neck, he made her cut Amirault's wrists. Then, after all the torture, they put him out of his misery with 3 bullets. Once Amirault was finally dead, the couple took the body to a nearby playground, where Armando forced his wife to cut her lover's head off. Police later found the distressed woman at a campsite where she'd been ordered to get rid of the evidence. Officers saw the body and the bloody mess and subsequently arrested Brittany. Later, Armando was taken into custody as well. For their respective roles in the murder of Jonathan Amirault, Brittany received 3.5 to 7 years in prison, while her husband got a life sentence. Number 7. Aquilino Torres. In New York on October 5, 2020, a man kidnapped his girlfriend as well as the woman's 7-year-old child after finding out that she cheated on him. Aquilino Torres told her that he'd kill the child if she didn't listen to what he said. When the girlfriend complied, he took them to a cheap motel in the Bronx. Here, Torres beat up the defenseless child and waited for him to fall asleep. When the kid was out, he turned his attention to his girlfriend. Torres violently dragged her into the bathroom where she was beaten to a pulp until blood rushed down her face. Afterwards, while she was still battered and bruised, Torres sexually assaulted her. The next morning, both victims were looking rough, but Torres wasn't done with his rampage. He got an Uber for all of them and then traveled back to his apartment. Over the next 5 days, he kept the mother and child prisoner. He tied his girlfriend to his bed whenever he had to leave to make sure she couldn't escape. At one point, Torres did hard drugs right in front of them and forced himself on the victim a second time. Finally, while the kidnapper was out, the mother and child were able to escape. When Torres realized they'd gotten away, he incessantly called and messaged his former lover, leaving nasty threats of what he'd do to her if she ratted him out. But unfortunately for him, threats don't mean much when you're behind bars. Police soon arrested Torres, and he now faces life in prison for what he did. Number 6. Tammy Moorer. When Tammy Moorer found out her husband Sidney was having an affair with a 20-year-old woman, the young mistress mysteriously went missing. In 2013, the woman in question, Heather Elvis, was studying to pursue a career in cosmetology. Police believe she spoke with Tammy the morning of her disappearance before driving to Myrtle Beach. She arrived at a boat landing building there, but it's unclear what happened next. The following day, authorities found her vehicle parked at the location with no one inside. According to a police report, Sidney met the young woman at a restaurant she worked at. Heather's roommates later told investigators that the two had an affair for a short while, but it ended a month or so before she vanished. After a little more snooping, it was revealed that Sidney and Heather were back in contact the night Tammy drove to the landing. Heather's roommate said this happened because the husband was apparently going to leave his wife for her. When questioned about this, Sidney simply said that the only reason he'd spoken with her that day was to tell her to stop contacting him. So the real truth here isn't clear. Tammy and Sidney were at the top of the suspect list when Heather's disappearance went public. A judge found Tammy guilty, and she was subsequently sentenced to 30 years behind bars for kidnapping. The court believes that she acted out in anger after discovering the affair. In a text message that she sent to her husband, she said, "Someone's about to get their A beat down." After hearing a few stories, how would you react if your partner cheated on you? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button. Number 5. Playing for the other team. A Tennessee woman was assaulted during the summer of 2022 when she discovered her boyfriend's affair. The woman was in for the surprise of her life because not only was her man cheating, he was having a sexual relationship with 2 different men. Apparently, while being intimate, they would even dress up in women's clothing for their secret lover. When 45-year-old Antonio Lamar Collier was confronted by the girl, he wasn't happy. The couple argued about his promiscuous behavior with the other guys. She wanted to leave the home they were fighting in, but Collier forced her back inside. Eventually, when she was able to get out of the house, he beat her, leaving her covered in bruises. The men he'd been seeing on the side saw all of this happen. As soon as Collier began attacking his girlfriend, the men did their best to pull him off. Someone who'd heard the commotion called the police, and they eventually showed up to calm down the situation. Not long after, Collier was formally charged with domestic assault as well as false imprisonment. Number 4. 4 against 1. 3 girls and a man from the UK got together for payback after they found out that the same man had been cheating on all of them. In 2015, Brendan Teal, Leah White, Natalie Lilly, and Lorraine Earls tricked the man into coming to an apartment in North Yorks. Once he was there, they all ambushed him and tied him to a chair. They subjected their victim to brutal torture as they laughed and enjoyed his suffering. They forced the cheater to drink soap, and they burned his private parts with a piping hot curling iron. The scorned lovers also scarred him with a lighter and beat him severely, even holding a sharp pizza cutter to his face at one point. While the others were sleeping, Lilly and White let the man go. But it didn't take long for all 4 attackers to get arrested. Surprisingly, it wasn't the victim who called the police, but his stepmom. In court, the assailants blamed each other for the attack, but the ringleaders, Teal and Earls, were soon uncovered. Even with all the torture they put the cheater through, the most severe punishment given to the members of the group was just 12 months in jail. Most of them were only ordered to complete community service time. Perhaps the court sympathized with them after getting cheated on. Number 3. Baby names. One woman on TikTok handled the news of her boyfriend cheating on her masterfully. She goes by the username Natalia, and she revealed her story to the internet for everyone to enjoy in March of 2022. When she realized her man had been hanging out with another girl, she didn't want to automatically blow up at him like people usually do. Instead, she spoke to him normally, as if nothing was wrong at all. She started talking about possibly starting a family together. The girl then pretended to cheerfully talk about their future, and when the topic of baby names came up, she had the perfect one for a little girl. Natalia said the name of the woman he'd been cheating with. Users praised Natalia for her cleverness and ability to handle a difficult situation with ease. They commented, asking what her boyfriend said in response. Apparently, the only thing he could say was, yeah? To this, she simply replied, "I'd suggest a middle name too, but you probably know her better, right?" That's when he knew he was caught. The creator said that her ex then threw a tantrum, crying and pretending to puke in the bathroom. The TikTok she uploaded got almost 6 million views. It's likely that the man will never cheat again after being humiliated. But who knows? As the saying goes, once a cheater, always a cheater. Number 2. Hero. 47-year-old Robert Pointer was a hero by all definitions of the word. For over 19 years, he worked as a firefighter near Dallas, putting everything he had into helping his community. When Hurricane Katrina hit Louisiana in 2005, he volunteered to go help look for survivors. Robert was also extremely kind and comforting to the children he rescued during his career. But despite all this pointing towards what a good person he was, his wife, Chasey Mormon, was not. Pointer discovered that his wife of 7 years had been unfaithful toward him with more than one man. He confided in close friends asking for advice, telling them that he thought divorce might be his only option. But it seemed like Chasey wanted to end things on her own terms. On September 9, 2016, she called the police saying that her husband had been shot to death. When authorities got to the scene, they found Robert's body with a bullet wound to the head. The wife described how they were going out to eat at a restaurant and had taken separate cars to drive. When her Jeep got stuck in some thick mud, she called her husband to come help her out. After he arrived, she claimed that a mysterious man came out of nowhere and shot him. Officers were immediately suspicious about this story when Chasey started confusing details. At the police station, Chasey was questioned. It didn't take long for her to admit that one of her lovers, Michael Garza, was actually the one who killed her husband after she asked him to help her scare Robert. Chasey was sentenced to serve life in prison after she was found guilty of capital murder. Garza consequently received 99 years for his part in the crime. Number 1. Street View. In 2018, a man in Peru found out his wife had been cheating on him in one of the strangest ways possible. While looking on Google to find the best directions to where he was going one day, he noticed someone familiar on the street view. After zooming in, he realized it was his wife. Google usually blurs the faces of individuals captured on camera, but this man knew it was his spouse because she was wearing the exact same clothes his wife often wore. He also noticed a man that wasn't himself lovingly laying his head in her lap while she seemed to be stroking his hair with affection. This image was captured in 2013, 5 years before, but he still confronted his wife about the past. They argued a bit, but ultimately decided to get a divorce. Heartbroken, the husband shared his story on Facebook, where it picked up a lot of traction. One user commented, "What a small world it is. It just goes to show that someone or some camera is always watching. So be on your best behavior." Which of these stories did you think was the craziest? Let us know in the comments, and be sure to subscribe for more. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Bad Badger. Bye!